episode 26 of the podcast. We're going to talk about owner responsibilities. We're going to talk about shaving dogs. And then we're also going to do our weekly action step. This is the Creating Great Grooming Dogs podcast. I'm Chrissy Newmeyer-Smith. I'm a certified professional groomer, a certified behavior consultant for canines, and a certified professional dog trainer. And this, my friends and colleagues, is the podcast where grooming and training meet. I want to talk a little bit about owner responsibilities. Certainly, there are owners listening to this. In fact, some of my customers as owners are listening to this. But in general, I think owner responsibilities are really important. And I think that as an industry, it has kind of been forgotten. So let's talk a little bit about that. It is common knowledge that owning a pet has some responsibilities. Okay, let's just start there. Everyone knows that your job is to keep your pet from hurting anyone. You're not allowed to let your pet hurt somebody. That seems pretty obvious. I'm going to have to say every darn fool out there should have heard that at least once in their life. Like, hey, you have to keep the world safe from your pet. But I'm going to expand that out to the people who help you take care of your pet. Because we're not chew toys, right? Your vet does not have to take your pet in. An emergency vet probably will, of course, but, they're kind of expecting animals that are in a panic, right? Who are injured, who are sore. But you know what? A lot more and more vets are refusing dogs with aggression issues because it's an owner's responsibility to work on that. And we, as a profession, are here to give you the information you need, right? I mean, not like hand it to you in a package or something. It's not like we're going to tell you, read this book, but we're here to set you up with the information you need and be supportive and help you do it. So if we start thinking about their job is to take care of their pet, right? We're not chew toys. And one of the things that you can talk to people about, like if their dog won't let them touch them, they shouldn't be casually just bringing them to a groomer or a vet. That's nonsense. That's ridiculous. And I think that we really need to pull that out as, whoa. You can't touch him at home. You can't clean around his eyes. And we find this out after when we tell you we had trouble with his eyes. No, that's nonsense. That is not appropriate, right? Their job is to try to keep people safe from their pet. So they need to be more proactive and telling us, he doesn't let us touch around his eyes, so that we have the opportunity to say, well, this is how we'll handle it. Now, when I talk about having a safety policy, that's so that we can get ahead of all this process, right? It takes the confrontation out of it for you. I want you to be thinking when they show up with a pet or when we're taking the appointment, we start listing off, well, we've never met him before. So what we do here is if at any time your dog starts getting really scared, really antsy, really aggressive, even overly playful, we have to slow them down for safety reasons. We have to slow them down and help them be comfortable with it. We don't want anyone getting hurt. We don't want to hurt your dog. We don't want us getting hurt. And we're getting that message out before anything happens, right? And we're also doing it in a proactive way so that the owner is now thinking, oh, I need to tell them, right? And they're not expecting us to just do it. They're not going to come back and say, oh my God, I can't believe you didn't get that part done. The last groomer could always get it done. No, we're already telling them ahead of time. It's not about whether or not we could get it done. If it's going to take 4 people holding him down and maybe, traumatizing him entirely, that's not what we do here. We don't do that. I don't want any of you guys doing that, right? That's extreme emergency medicine while they're trying to sedate an animal, right? That's an extreme. That is certainly not a bath and a haircut, right? My hairdresser does not need to know martial arts to give me a haircut, right? No one is expecting her to be able to block a punch, right? That's just not part of the job. And so when we look at our safety policy ahead of time and telling people straight up, this is what we do to keep everybody safe, the dog's in our care, right? Now we're also telling them that we aren't here to get hurt either. And we're doing it in a way that is good for business, right? This is good for business. I don't want you to feel like you're turning people away by saying, we slow it down. when your animal is having a problem. I don't want you to feel like you're turning people away. You're explaining to them what they need to know to keep everything safe. And when we have a safety policy that explains it up front, now they're not feeling like, oh, so what did he do? Because we haven't even seen the dog yet. Right? Now, for those of you who are new to having a safety policy, it'll be something that you start telling all of your regular customers. And that's when you're going to get a little bit of pushback. Well, you always did it before, right? Or you got it done before. What, are you going to charge me even more now? You know, like, yes, train your dog, right? And I know that sounds really harsh, but I think that maybe we should be just a little bit more vigilant about safety for everyone. Because while I don't have any scientific backings for this, I will tell you anecdotally, in my experience of 30 years working with dogs, a dog that is not good for the groomer or not good for the vet has problems at home too. We are saving them from themselves also. We are helping them realize, oh, there's a solution set for that. And maybe it really is in my best interest to do it, right? One of the things I see as a house call groomer is owners who are so worried about what happens in the grooming shop. Oh, at least I don't have to leave him there. And some of them have like really, really misbehaving dogs, right? Like they have the dogs that need to be, really worked with. And I'm like, well, a dog that is a good dog, who is used to being touched and handled, who can handle grooming, rarely has a bad experience. And if they do have a bad experience, it is likely because of watching another dog have a meltdown, right? We also need to be thinking about that in our businesses also, right? That if let's say one dog is in an exam room and the next dog in the next room is having a total meltdown, dogs know that. Right? That's like being at the dentist and hearing another little kid scream, right? Like that they know that. I was watching a documentary about something and a dog screamed in it. And my own dog's like, I put it on mute because my own dogs were like, oh my God, what's happening to that dog? Right? So we need to be thinking about our business from a different perspective because there are some customers that should be turned away, right? So when we have a safety policy and we start thinking about this is what we're going to do if your dog is unruly, if your dog is overly excited, if your dog is aggressive with us, and if that means that we aren't able to get him out of the crate, then you come back and you take hold of your dog and we send you to a trainer or a vet behaviorist or whichever version we think that dog would benefit most from, right? That doesn't mean that, oh, well, we couldn't groom him today, just sedate him for next time. Like, no. That's not how this works at all. Like, this dog needs some serious help with feeling comfortable with the things going on around them. And it's not going to happen on a busy day in a grooming shop and someone is extremely, extremely likely to get hurt. Not just a little bit likely to get hurt. That's just someone waiting to get hurt, right? Whether it be the dog or the owner, sometimes it's not even about a bite. I remember one friend telling me about her dog came back from a grooming shop limping the next day. And I'm like, you know what? He probably was struggling and fighting with them and he's a little bit sore. Like I know your dog. You've told me all sorts of stories and you tell me about how, he's terrible for it. I'm like, that's why I don't groom your dog. And that's a friend. So people don't necessarily want to hear it, right? And unfortunately, our industry has allowed that. We've kind of been taken advantage of for a long time. And instead, we need to be thinking about, you know what, that's not safe for the dog. That's not safe for the owner. Are we really serving our customers by just pushing through it? And we are not. We're not. We need to be straight up front and tell them there's a way to solve this. It takes time and it takes effort. Right? It might not be the groomer who does it. It might be one of our other complementary dog professionals, but it can be done in like most cases. I mean, it's a pretty rare case where a dog can't learn how to be handled, right? So they are house pets. They're not wild creatures. So some of the ways that we can word this, and I'm going to take a little bit more of a pushy step with it because some of our owners need to hear that. right? The owner who says, we've already gone to training, we've already done this stuff, what more does he need to know? Well, he needs to know how to be comfortable with this. And whatever training you did before, while probably helpful in your day-to-day life, didn't prepare him for what we need to do. If you cannot touch your dog, don't expect us to be able to. If you can't look in his ears at home, don't just bring him to a groomer or to the vet and have them do it. Now, we definitely, as professionals, have a better shot at it. But owners need to start seeing that they need to be able to touch their dog. That is safety. That's part of the owning a pet means keeping them from hurting people. And that includes their own owners. That includes their family. So when we look at the safety issue, that's a big part. And this part, I want you to think about, even if you're talking to someone who's really having some trouble grasping what we're talking about. Well, I've always had him done, and it's always gone this way. And I don't care if you have to pin him down. We get his nails done every year at this time, right? So one of the ways that we can word it, I know that having a difficult dog is embarrassing, but I can help you find solutions for you and your dog to be safer. And that's a little bit of a tricky one, because I think that sometimes we forget that owners are embarrassed. They're embarrassed when their dog isn't good for grooming. And the ones who aren't, by wording it this way, you're now putting that little bug in their ear that they should be. The ones who simply don't care, yeah, if you simply don't care, you should be embarrassed. And I will give you an example. I had one guy that I went to his house and I was like, you know what? I gave you a bunch of things to work on, but you're still letting him attack your vacuum cleaner and then looking surprised that he won't let me dry him. And this guy started getting really huffy. Like, I'm watching his fists clench and he's getting all huffy with me and upset. And I'm like, are you trying to tell me what I need to do with my dog? And I'm like, oh, no. I'm telling you what you need to do if you want me to continue to groom your dog. You can do whatever you want. Right? You can let him attack your vacuum cleaner and attack the sprayer and think that that's hilarious. But at the end of the day, you also can't sit on the couch next to him when he has a bone. Really? Alasa? Your life is ruled by Alasa? Does that seem safe to you? Right? So when sometimes we need to point out that they should be embarrassed by it. Yeah, of course. I would be. Holy moly, right? But to also be supportive and say, we're here to help you find the solution. But that doesn't mean that I put on a bite suit to get a grooming done. That's the expectations for our field, for groomers and for veterinarians and for any of the dog businesses out there, is really out of line with what is expected from house pets, right? We need to get this under control. We need to help owners get the help they need and weed out the ones who don't want to, because they can groom their own dog. They can go to Walmart, buy some clippers and some shampoo and do it themselves. They don't need to have a professional do it. We don't need to put up with it, right? And they're not going to make everyone in their neighborhood stop doing business with you, because their neighbors know what they're like. They know. So when we circle back to owner responsibilities, I also want you to remember every dog professional out there usually has pets of their own. Maybe not a dog. Many of them have cats and birds and snakes and all sorts of interesting animals. But we also, and when we're the owner bringing our animals for services, we understand that we have responsibilities. Of course we do. So we can relate to that, right? We need to be able to have these animals be safe. And if not, we need to be working toward them being safe. And if they aren't going to be safe and if their owners aren't going to be working with them, they don't belong in our shop with our safe dogs and our awesome owners who do work with dogs. If you're enjoying my podcast, please remember to subscribe so that you don't miss any episodes. So shaving dogs is an issue, certainly with dogs that have a lot of behavior problems, because sometimes they have had behavior problems long enough that they are not well brushed out. But I think that shaving is not as easy as everybody seems to think it is. Groomers, we get it. So this is some ways for us to explain it to others. But if a dog has trouble being touched and being handled, then running a clipper over every itty bitty teeny tiny speck of their body is really stressful. And there are times when shaving is necessary because the hair has become damaged. But let the groomer decide the best way to help that dog. Let the groomer decide the best way to get that hair off, because sometimes it's not shaving. Even if we do decide that that hair needs to come off, that is too matted, or that dog being in a longer coat is much more work for an owner and a dog who aren't prepared for that level of work, right? That there are times where we do want to take off a whole lot of the dog's coat, but maybe not necessarily with clippers. And that's kind of the point here, is that I think that I keep hearing that, like, oh, well, it was just a shave down, or just have them shave him this time, and then, but just shaving, no, there's no such thing. Shaving is actually pretty rigorous process for a dog who has trouble with it. So for many of those dogs that have trouble, I'll use my shears and just scissor off most of the coat instead of meticulously going through with a clipper, especially on legs. Legs and faces, those are spaces that are really, really sensitive, and legs have so many little angles to get into. Whereas if I use my scissors and I just take off a bunch of hair and brush it through and take off some more, it actually can leave it a little bit plusher and look a little bit more even. But it depends. It depends on if we're even worried about what that dog looks like. But scissors for many dogs are not nearly as overstimulating as clippers are, because the scissors do make a noise. I mean, they make that noise when you scissor. But a clipper has a vibration to it, and it's got more sound. Even the little trimmers, like the 5-in-1 blades that you see, have a little bit more sound, a little bit more vibration. So I have many dogs that I wouldn't even bother with the clipper if they're coming in and they need a lot of help, and they're really just kind of a wild card as to how they're going to behave for it. I'll just start them with the scissors, but then I'm really comfortable with shears. I'm really comfortable with my scissors. Leave it up to the groomer the best way to get that hair off. Okay. Now, ladies, I want you to think about when you're shaving your legs. We're aware that a flat blade has to go multiple passes over places like ankles and knees, right? Guys, when you shave your chin, you're aware that a flat blade has to make multiple passes to go over those angles. So when we think about using clippers to go over all those little angles on a dog's leg, so we're working around that stop pad, around that elbow, underneath an armpit, which also has a fold of skin, depending on which way the dog is going to let you pull their leg up. There are lots of things to consider. Sometimes it's a matter of trying to get to slide the skin off to the side a little bit to pull it out of the little wedge in between tendons, right? There's a lot more to it if you're going through it with clippers. And so if the dog is already worried about the vibration, already worried about the sound, and isn't really great with being touched, scissors are a really good choice. And so we need to think about that when we're talking to owners, and as trainers, we need to think about that too. Like, you know what? I think the groomer should try to get this hair off. And trainers, if you have a dog that you're working with that is really having trouble with being brushed, then that's a good time to also start thinking about, is this dog gonna need to be shaved? Is this dog's coat gonna need to come off because of the matting due to brushing? Because mats aren't just tangled hair. They're not just about being pretty. And I think that sometimes owners really don't get that. They're like, well, yeah, he has some mats. But what mats are is all of the hair has kind of jumbled up into a thick wad. And sometimes that is up against skin. All right, so the hair has become damaged because it is so tightened up, and if it's been dirty, that dirt has been rubbing against it, almost like sandpaper. So sometimes the hair is too damaged that even if we do brush it out, it's going to tangle back right away. Other times, it's not all that damaged, and we can just brush it out, and it'll be okay. But I want you to be thinking about the fact that the mat itself is keeping the skin from being able to breathe right. Okay, it can trap moisture, it can trap bacteria. One of my peeves, And I'll tell you, so there's a huge debate in the grooming world about whether or not we should shave dogs' coats, which types of coats, the double coats. So thinking about like the collies and the golden retrievers, and if we should be shaving those. And aside from that debate, that we're not even going to cover that debate here. But if that damages their coat or not. But aside from that debate, that if the skin underneath is being damaged, that could make it sore. That could make it really hurt if we're dematting. But my peeve is when people talk about how dematting with a brush is cruel or torture. I won't torture your dog, right? Stop it. Because there is no torture involved. Brushing a mat is pretty straightforward. And if you're doing it really hard, then that's not good technique. So we need to do it gently. It is extremely time consuming, right? So if owners are like, oh, I don't want to pay for that, like, okay, that's fair. Because I'm going to tell you, it's going to take a long time to brush those mats out. And if the hair is damaged, there's no point in brushing it out. And I think most groomers would agree with that. Like if you bring in a collie or a Samoyed who is like totally matted, we're like, oh man, I can't save this. You know, like let's start over with some nice fresh hair. But the idea that it's torture and it's painful to brush out mats is kind of based on if their skin is sore. But I've mentioned before, if something's going to hurt, to me, that's a veterinary procedure and I'm going to send them to the vet. So I will start out brushing, and dogs are really comfortable with me brushing. Even brushing mats on tails and bums and ears and around eyes. I do it really gently. I've got a really good brush. But if I see a little hint of a wound or something going on with the skin underneath the mat, I stop. Right? There might be a hot spot under there. There might be an infection. There might be something going on, and I'll stop. And that might be the one spot that I leave for them to go to the vet and have the vet peel it off and find out what's going on underneath that hair. Because that's where that painfulness comes in, not the brushing process. Because I hear that a lot, and I'm like, no, brushing does not hurt. Many animals can be brushed just fine. Usually if I'm brushing a mat out, I'm pinching it off near the skin. So it's not pulling up against their skin. I'm brushing from the ends and I'm brushing gently. It's time consuming. And most owners are not really prepared for like how long that would take and what that means in terms of cost. So, but doing a rush job and just brush it out faster isn't an option because I'm not here to hurt your dog. So be thinking about if shaving or getting the hair off is going to be something really important for this dog behaviorally, that's great. But let the groomer decide which way to get that hair off because the clipper might not be a great choice. And we're all individuals. Every groomer is a little bit different in what tools they prefer. So give the groomer the chance to figure out which way that hair is going to come off. And if it's something that they really feel they need to save, because it's a collie who might have their hair grow back different, you know what? Be aware that that's a huge debate in the grooming industry. So training, you guys argue about punishments versus rewards. Groomers, we argue about things like, should we be plucking ears? Should we be checking anal glands? And should we shave down double-coated breeds? And it becomes savage and mean. So it's a really riled up thing. But let the groomer decide which way to get that hair off. So last week, I gave you guys a weekly action step. And that was to get into the habit of checking every dog to see if they're loose. And to get your hands on them, just see if they're loose. See if they're loose. Because it was to help you guys start thinking about the feeling of this dog is still relaxed versus this dog is now stiff, and get a feel for it without necessarily looking at their eyes, without necessarily looking at their face, like something you can do while you work. This week's weekly action step for owners, for trainers, for groomers, for vets, whoever, I want you to start thinking about every time you're met with a challenge, a dog who's maybe struggling a little bit, I want you to be able to sit back and say, did that help? Did it help? And be a little bit more objective, right? Like whatever it was I just did it help? Did it help the dog to be more comfortable, or calm, or cooperative? The three C's, comfortable, calm, and cooperative. Did it help achieve the longer term goal? Because the longer term goal, what's going on in their head, is super important. And if it didn't help, that's interesting, right? And take note of that. Like, okay, I did this, but he struggled the whole time. And so I backed off and I tried again, but he struggled again, right? Because I think that we have to be better at assessing, what worked for the last dog, or maybe the last 10,000 dogs, just isn't working with this one, right? And to be objective about it and not worry about how you feel about it or how the dog, feels, but kind of watch what is happening and think, all right, did that process help? Because that's how you're also going to be able to think, I wonder what would help. Or to build more confidence of, you know what, it really did. Because I did that one paw and I stopped and took a break, and later on I did the second paw and he was good for the second paw too, right? To be objective and say, you know what, I think that helped this dog on this day. So be thinking about your weekly action step, and I'm doing it too. I do these weekly action steps with you guys because that just helps us all be better at our jobs and better with our own pets. So have a great week and stay curious. If you'd like to talk to me, you can find me through my grooming and training business, happycrittersdogtraining.com, my email, chrissy@happycritters.net, and through the Creating Great Grooming Dogs Facebook page. And we have these awesome devices in our pockets that allow us to do live video with each other. I can help you with the dog on your table. We can set up live lessons, and you may be surprised at how much we can get accomplished together via video. I'm also happy to come to you if you're near my area in southern New Hampshire. If you're ready to go beyond the podcast, and I hope you do, I've made it really easy for you. If you go to creatinggreatgroomingdogs.com and click on your next step, you'll see all of the options. There's the Scholar Lounge community, there's the Modern Grooming Professional Certification, there's Master Canine Stylist and Professional Canine Stylist Diploma testings, there's the Behavior Lab for coaching and private one-on-one sessions with me, and of course the Master Groomer Behavior Specialist program. So go to creatinggreatgroomingdogs.com and click on your next step.